Was it just, don't do that, stop it, put that away? I'm like, yeah, you're communicating, you're talking to them, but is that really any quality to that? So I think when you're sitting in front of a TV or you're holding your phone and chatting about what you're staring at on TikTok or Instagram, like, is there really quality?
Hello, I'm Sam.
And I'm Amelia.
Welcome back to Us At Your podcast where we aim to build a better mindset for better relationships.
Yeah, this week on Strengthening Relationships, we are going to talk about how to be better communicators.
Yes, and we've got someone special joining us here today. You may have seen her in a previous episode, Opportunities from Closing Old Doors.
Yeah, so that was an awesome episode, but this week we are going to pick her brain from the perspective of a speech pathologist and what she has learned and what she teaches her clients about and how that can apply to all of us in general to become better communicators. So, Julie, welcome back.
Thank you for having me back.
So before we get started into this whole topic about communications, could you just give all of us just a glimpse of what is speech pathology and just what that is about and what you help people with?
Yeah, definitely. So speech pathology, it's a field pretty much where we, I guess, are therapists and we work on diagnosis, assessment and treatment of communication disorders, of pragmatic disorders, of swallowing disorders. So that's just kind of like a gist of a little bit of what we do. And we work with adults and children.
Mm.
Awesome. Yeah. How does speech and language therapists assist with communication?
So a lot of times if we're working with children, it's mainly around communication. So if there's a delay in them speaking, they come to us and they look for help, trying to get them back on board and getting them communicating. And it can range from a variety of either getting them to communicate using words, using pictures, using sign language, using body and gesture. And I guess it depends too on whether or not they've got other comorbidities, so other health conditions that may be impacting their communication, or if it's just, that the fact that they're delayed. We also look at teaching them social skills. So, how to use language appropriately. We may look at pronunciation. So a lot of times kids may mispronounce words, can't articulate clearly, and sometimes even understanding the language. So language can be quite intricate when it comes to, grammar and all of that, following directions. So some kids struggle with that. And then there's a little niche area where we do help with infant feeding or children that are picky, fussy eaters. So that's kind of a little bit of a specialty area. With adults, a lot of times it's adults that have an accident of some sort that may have impacted their communication. It may be a health condition that they have that would have also impacted either early on or later on their communication. So a lot of times we're working with them to either maintain whatever communication they've got or repair, hopefully bring back some of the communication that they did have. It's also looking at their, swallowing as well. So if you're looking at older clientele, aged care clients, they a lot of times have difficulties with eating, chewing, swallowing certain textures. So it's modifying it and making it safe for them so that they can still enjoy foods and, have a sense of quality of life.
Wow,
that's crazy.
So much that goes behind. Like you hear speech pathologists and you think it's like either talking, communicating, but there's just so much more that goes behind it.
Yeah, I didn't even know there was that much involved in speeches in general.
Yeah. And that's only like a tiny snapshot. There's a whole other little things that we do.
Yeah.
If adults or children, have volume issues or they have a hoarse voice or they've lost their voice or things like that.
Wow.
Work with stuttering. Like there's just tons. And I guess each speech, it depends on, what their area of interest is.
Yeah. Sounds like there's a lot. But in terms of being in this field for quite a while, is there anything that you learned for yourself in terms of how that has helped you in communicating?
Definitely being a mindful communicator. Because I work with such a range of, ages, I guess being mindful of, how everyone communicates, what information they need, what's important part of my job as well is to make sure that I do explain everything and be honest and trust, and they are trusting me for their health and for their prime concerns. So I've got to make sure that I can address them in a way that they're comfortable about, and that they can understand and that they can follow through as well. Because a lot of times, if it's parents, for example, they come to us and they're quite vulnerable because, it may be that they've got a 3-year-old where the child hasn't said a single word. And it can be quite embarrassing, when you're out in the community and all 3-year-olds are talking, your child's the only one that's not. So they come to you kind of seeking for that help, but they don't know how to ask it. And it's a little bit scary to ask it because the first thing you think of as a parent is there something wrong with my child? Did I do something wrong? Are they broken? Do they have a health condition? That kind of stuff. So it can be quite emotional for them too in the beginning. And I guess changing their mindset in the sense that, look, it might not be what you envisioned for your child, but we'll do the best that we can to get you where you need to, where your child needs to be to function in day-to-day, life.
Yeah, that's pretty hectic. I guess when you reflect back, because you deal with a variety of different clienteles, kids, older generation, but sometimes adults as well. How has that affected, I guess, the way you communicate with others?
I think a little bit comes from what I teach. I then put it into practice because if I'm telling the kids, you've got to use eye contact, I've got to model that too,
Yeah.
If I'm teaching, adults social etiquette between, every time you say hi to somebody, you've got to do this, this, and this, or you say bye, or, when you meet somebody, you've got to do this. I've got to make sure I'm modeling all of those things as well. So I guess I become more mindful in the sense that, I know, for example, not to talk over people, that a conversation is 2 people, if not more, and we've got to take turns talking. And I think too, working with parents, they've got a lot of questions, anytime you're doing any type of therapy, there's a billion questions that come out. So I think from being asked so many questions over the years, I've learned that sometimes I have to be very clear about certain things straight off the bat. To avoid these types of questions, I have to make sure that I'm very transparent about some of the things I do so that then they don't feel the things that they feel or need to ask the questions that they need to ask. I'm a bit more well-versed in the sense that because I have to be mindful looking after my clients, that I am then mindful when I'm talking to friends, if I'm building relationships outside of work, that kind of thing. I've just got to kind of practice what I preach, I guess.
Yeah. No, that's good. Good to hear that you're actually trying to practice it too, because maybe something you might have taught a client might not have worked properly, and then that helps you tweak that strategy or tweak what you're teaching and, can change that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say it'd be a lot of pressure because you're teaching all these particular methods that you learn when you study, but then you got to go, oh shit, I got to remind myself that I got to apply this to my real life setting, so that people around me can see, okay, I'm actually doing what I'm doing. This is how I apply it.
And there's almost an expectation as well, right away. Like when I had children, everyone's like, oh, your children are going to be so good at talking, like they're just going to be talking so early. And then I'm going, oh my God, I better do speech therapy on my children then, better start early, because if I don't, they're not going to talk. And if I have children that don't talk, I'm screwed. This is my job. This is my image. So it does put on a lot of stress and pressure, I guess, more pressure to make sure that I am doing things a certain way. Or I'll get random people say to me, oh, so you'll be able to, teach me how to say this word, right? Because I couldn't say this all the time.
Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious.
Yeah. And then I'm going, oh shit, am I really supposed to know how to pronounce this? So you get these little weird little times where people ask you or expect you to be a certain way because you are a speech pathologist,
What's the weirdest word someone has got you to teach them to pronounce?
I can't remember the word, but it was a really basic word. And I was just like, what? You've gone all these years not being able to say this. So, and these are just random adults just trying to pick my brain, I think. So yeah, no, I won't be able to remember the exact words, but I do get, random ones like that.
Has there been any personal experience outside of work where you really felt that, optimal communication like was actually really needed and you actually applied what you've taught and it helped you?
Definitely. I guess the main thing that comes into mind is relationship with my husband, because I think that is key to any relationship is communication. I had to reflect on that because you don't really think about how much your job impacts your life. And it wasn't until I really thought about it, I was like, yeah, actually, I probably do apply some of the stuff I do at work at home. And I guess the big thing is like, yeah, you know, every relationship, you have arguments, you have fights. And now with children, you definitely have lots of fights. And they're always around really stupid things, you know? And now that I think back to it, I'm like, a lot of it was communication. It's having that poor communication. We weren't clear about something. We didn't explain ourselves. You know, we had half the conversation in our head.
Yeah.
We weren't honest with each other, that kind of stuff. So I guess from that, it's, you know, it's almost like how I deal with my parents, or it's how I deal with an adult that I'm working with at work. You know, I've got to make sure to avoid any sort of standard or to avoid any misinterpretation. I've got to explain myself from A to B, you know, like, and all the fine details in between. So I guess, yeah, when I'm dealing with Eddie and we're trying to work the logistics of getting out of the house, it's about, okay, in my mind, I'm thinking these things. I better voice it out and tell him so he's not misinterpreting my actions or what I'm trying to say or what I'm trying to do. And then I enforce it on him as well, because, you know, a lot of times he's a quiet man, won't say anything, and then all of a sudden there's an outburst. So I've got to make sure that he's verbalizing to me and using his words, which I say to kids all the time, use your words, use your words. You know, I always say to him, how do I know what you want if you don't tell me? So I think that's where that comes into play. It's that I know that words are key to building any kind of relationship. It's how we know what the other one is thinking. It's how we know how to meet each other's needs and wants, you know, is that we have to talk about it. You know, we have to say something. I can't just guess from staring at you, you know, and hoping it seeps into my brain somehow, you know, like sometimes you can read body language. So I think that's helped as well, is that I can see from him, you know, he's had a rough day because he's come in with his, you know, head down and body's all stiffened and his face is all scrunched up or something. I'll know, oh, that's a sign of anger, you know. So I guess typical people may not pick up on that. Whereas for me, because I deal with children that essentially don't speak, a lot of times I've got to read their body language to know what they want. So I guess that's helped me in that sense. I've been able to pick up his body cues, which he definitely doesn't pick up mine. So that's probably something I'm going to train him with. And that's, I think, helped me then read the situation and know exactly how to handle, you know, what's to come.
Yeah, I think body language is such a big thing as well. Body language and just like reactions, I think. Can you tell us a bit more about that, like body language and reactions and like how you can tell certain like things and what they mean?
Yeah, definitely. Because, yeah, like I've got to teach children and adults about emotions, you know, happy, sad, and all the other emotions in between. We've got to sometimes teach them explicitly how to read that. So what does a happy person look like? It's not just smiling. You can see from the whole entire body, arms and the way you carry your whole body. That's a happy person versus, you know, someone that's got the fist all clenched, you know, and even breathing, you know, things like breathing, you know, when you're angry, you're probably speeding up your breathing a lot more. And it sounds really different than when you're happy, when it's all calm and slow. So yeah, so body language is really key to, I think, even when you walk into a room, you know, when you first take a step into a room and you're trying to read the room, you know, you may not be speaking to people right away, but the first thing you see are people sitting there. You're your analyzing. Vibes. Yeah, your vibes, exactly. You're analyzing, you know, there's that person sitting on the on the chair, you know, they're looking down. What does that mean? Maybe they don't want to talk to me, you know. That person's looking around the room. Oh, they must be curious about something, or they're looking for some sort of connection, you know. So that's really important too. And I think that can also help in social situations for adults, trying to learn how to read the room and knowing whether or not you should approach that person to talk and approach that person to ask a question, that type of thing.
Yeah, that's really, really cool. I think even just talking to you before we got onto this, you were talking about communication styles and having to allocate yourself to someone else's communication styles. So how would you pick up on what you would need to do to allocate to someone else, like what their communication style is?
Yeah, that's very important. I think that we don't ever really think about when we are good communicators, in the sense that we can all talk and we can, chat and have a conversation. I don't think we put enough awareness about other people and what other people's needs are. A lot of times we just, we know you, we'll just chat with you the way we would normally chat to anybody, without reading all the cues. Everyone communicates very differently. Some communicate with their hands and use a lot of hands. Some people need things told a very specific way. Some people may ask a lot of questions. Some people may sit back and listen the whole time and be afraid to jump in. So I think it's, this goes with body language as well. So it's really when you're talking to that person, judging them and really looking at kind of how they're responding to you or how they're conversing with you and the way the conversation is flowing. And if you can kind of pick up on those little things, you can kind of change your way of speaking to better suit them. And that way you're going to have also a bit more of a comfortable conversation. And I guess this happens, like I can see this, and this happens a lot because of dealing with the parents, because a lot of times I've got to train the parents to work with their child. And I can see there's parents that are, more introverted or more parents that are extroverted. And we do talk about parenting styles quite a bit too in our conversations. I've realized, there's times I've got to tone myself down. When I'm working with an introvert or I'm working with a parent that's really, uncomfortable or shy, I can't be as full on, I'm a very full on person. I love talking. I say so much and really fast. And I go, ooh, I've got to read that person, She's really quiet. She's just nodding. She's not saying anything. She hasn't said a single word to me for 45 minutes.
She's like shriveling into a little purr, and then you're just like, no.
Yeah, I'm totally overdoing it. So, I've got to go, okay, that's too much for her. Maybe I need to have more pauses in what I'm saying and give her an opportunity to, nod or say something. Or if I'm dealing with an extrovert, those ones are really hard because I like to talk a lot and they're talking more than me. Shit.
It's like a talk fight.
Yeah.
It really is.
Battle.
Oh my gosh. I've got one parent at the moment she just, has lots to say. So I really have to be mindful of that and go, no, I need to step way back because we're just talking on top of each other. And that is not working, none of us are listening to each other. So I've got to learn to step back and just be the introvert, just sit and nod. And she's probably talking lots because she probably has something on her mind, that she's not really looking for an opinion or looking for a response. She just wants to get those thoughts out.
Yeah.
So I need to let that happen. So that's really important for everyone, especially when we're meeting people new. We've got to really learn to kind of respect each other's space. Kind of like, I don't know if anybody's read the 5 love languages. I like to think of it that way, that book where, everyone has a different love language style. Like everyone has a different communication style. So we've all got to make sure we understand what that person communicates like before we go on our merry way and talk the way we normally talk.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. And it's quite similar for me in like the design industry, especially when I'm pitching to a client or even just going to a client to do like the consultation things. And sometimes if you're presenting and you're pitching, I could easily go from like start to finish showing my PDF and like, this is your branding, this is where it's going, blah, blah, blah. And there's some people like, nah, keep going. Like, I just want to see the whole thing. Whereas like for different clients, you might want to be like, stop and pause and be like, what are you thinking so far? And like asking these type of questions. And then if they're like, no, it's all good, keep going. And you're like, yeah, cool. So it's just like understanding how people reciprocate what you're saying as well, rather than keeping to your own like communication style and just be like, this is me. You just gotta like talk like me and like have that expectation as well.
Yeah, definitely. Because I think if you're not understanding their communication style and you're not really respecting their style, there's always a lot of communication breakdown, which I don't know if typical people see, but I see it with children quite a lot. Like if that child's at 1 to 2 word level and they're speaking 1 to 2 word sentences, and here I am saying, 10 word sentence to them, they just look at me like, oh, what the hell is she saying? You know, what does she want from me? And then there's like complete disinterest, you know, and they just remove themselves from the room, or they'll go play with something else. They don't want to engage with me anymore. So it's very obvious for me because I can see the results of that. Whereas if I just come down to their level and I start speaking in their words and in their way, there's all of a sudden a connection. So I think that applies to adults all the time, is that I could be talking to Sam about speech pathology and just going on and on about the intricacies about it and getting into, you know, those really jargony words. And he'll probably just sit there and go blank and just stare at me. And if I'm not reading his cues, he'll probably just hate me and not want to chat with me anymore, you know, like,
yeah.
So I think it's very important going, oh, okay, actually, he's giving me that blank look now. I better tone down. I better change the topic, or I better say something that's going to be something he can relate to, you know? So I think that's really important in any relationship that we're, you know, that we have, whether it's with friends, you know, whether it's new people, whether it's work.
Yeah.
Now, I was going to say it is quite true. It's reciprocal when it comes to adults. And that's something I had to learn too, is to read the room first, get a feel of how they actually interpret things. And then that's when you can really put your 2 cents into it. Yeah. And it makes a massive difference when you do that.
So you also have kids yourself. Have you ever really applied this, like just your learnings from being a speech pathologist, to them and how it's helped?
100%. I speech pathology my kids all the time. I don't think Eddie notices it, but because I'm always, you know, one of the things I teach is always follow your child's lead. Obviously, there's, you know, boundaries amongst that, but you're going to have better communication if you're interested in what they're interested in and you're aware of what they're wanting to communicate or look at or trying to show you. Putting all your efforts onto them, you're going to have a better communication with them and you're going to have a better relationship with them. So a lot of the times, if we're just playing or just hanging out, it's what they want to do. You know, I'm letting them lead me and I'm just there to support them. And I think a lot of times when the meltdowns or tantrums happen, I have to try to switch off from I'm the mother and I go into a more of a, okay, if I was helping a parent out today, what would I do? You know, I'm not going to go and start throwing them around and, you know, doing things that a professional wouldn't do. I have to try to hold myself back and go, okay, she's obviously upset for a reason. Let's analyze, you know, the situation. Let's look at the body language. What is she trying to tell me with her body? You know, what is she trying to convey? Maybe she's not getting those words out. Okay, let me go back to the basics. Give her a choice. You know, what are the 2 things that, you know, she may need or want from me? Maybe I need to redirect. Maybe. So I use a lot of those little strategies and techniques on my children. I can't say they always work. And I can't say I always don't default back into the, oh, I'm just going to shut them in a room and let them cry it out. You know, like definitely still do those types of things. But I guess I have more tools in my handbag that I try to use and I'm more mindful. And I think between me and Eddie, a lot of times Eddie has no idea what they want and he just goes into a frustrated, pissed off mode. Whereas for me, I'm more able to kind of step back and analyze and look at the situation and go, this is what's happening. We need to communicate our probably instructions a little bit better, or maybe we need to be a bit more clear on our expectations. That way we can avoid a meltdown. That way we can avoid an argument. Maybe we had said something and promised something but didn't deliver and she's taken to that, you know, and that's why there's an argument. But yeah, other times I guess it's even being mindful of what they're saying to me and how they're communicating to me. So my second one, he's 1 year old and he's at that stage of really learning words. So I guess where my career is helping me now is going, oh my God, he's starting to copy me. He's starting to say things to me and copy exactly what I'm saying. So I'm telling everybody around me, guys, start using one word. So that's where that speechy mindset comes in, you know, is because I can see that he's starting to learn and pick up things.
Yeah. So speaking one word makes it easier for them to pick up when they're starting to learn words.
Trying to get some advice now, hey?
Need the inside scoop, you know.
Yeah. So if they're at that early language stage where they're just starting to pick up words, definitely I guess we would say, dumb it down, speak that one word, because that's what their level is at the moment. It's just one words. If you give them a 5-word sentence, they're definitely not going to copy that. They're not at that skill level yet.
He might be a rapper, you don't know.
Yeah.
If my child could say 5-word sentences at 1 year old, oh my gosh, I think I would have just slumped every speech pathologist out there in this world.
That's your point of difference.
Yeah, I'll sell that, Get your kid talking 5 words at 1 year old.
Yeah, that's actually, I didn't think of it like that. Like, especially from someone that's,
well, like bringing it to that dog example, you can kind of see like, when you're like sit, stay, walk, or come, like those things, and they really reciprocate that. So it makes sense.
Yeah, it's really basic. If you're just mindful of them and you're watching them and you're aware of what they're trying to communicate to you, if you follow them and just one up them a little bit, then it'll help them, they'll get there.
So the true learning here is be curious about your child and watch them and just see what they're doing.
Well, like I think that's such a good point. Bringing back to when you said if your kids are trying to show you something, actually like look at what they're showing you and be interested. And I think that follows through to, even just us with other people as well. If people are talking to you and that person's like on their phone or something, you will start to feel that disconnect. And even though I think kids are better because they can actually show you, like they'll cry or they'll be like, you're not talking to me, or like, why are you not looking at me? Whereas like adults will probably be like, oh, whatever, he's not listening. But over time that will build into something. Like if it's a relationship, you're like, oh, you're always on your phone, or you never reply to me. And I feel like that's such a good point to bring out.
Oh, 100%. I'm sitting here nodding because I'm just like, oh my God, you've just hit it. Like that is my greatest pet peeve. And it's that. And I think, I don't know, maybe it bothers me more because I am in this industry and I am more aware of social cues and I am more aware of what is it being an effective communicator. I see that a lot more, and it drives me nuts to see that, like you're sitting down having a meal and everyone's just looking at their phone.
Yeah.
And no one's conversing anymore. Like, where is the talking happening? Where is that relationship building? And it drives me nuts. And me, I just want to walk over there and go, can you guys just put your phone down and let's just talk? Like,
go and like smack her.
Maybe you should ask her about her day and just see how she's feeling. Like, look at her, she looks kind of sad. Like maybe something's happened. Just poke around a little bit. Maybe she wants to talk to you. Like I almost want to just do that sometimes to people, because I'm just sitting there analyzing all the time, like I said, their body language. I don't think I realize I pick up on that quite a lot. And I guess it's kind of hard on me too, because then I go, why isn't anyone reading my body language? Why isn't anyone staring at me and realizing I need something back? Why isn't no one not realizing I need a conversation about something?
Yeah.
So I think it can be hard sometimes when you switch that hat on and you're just so aware of it. And I guess I don't realize I do bring a lot of my work into my day-to-day life.
But that reflects how important communication is and just understanding people in general.
And just talking.
What I mean? Yeah. Because I think this is the shit thing is I think technology and phones nowadays, especially when people are on fucking TikTok all the bloody time. And I'm like, fucking, you're sitting here eating with me, but you're on fucking TikTok. Get that shit off, man. Like,
yeah.
I can understand the frustration when you see people do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not like those good old days when we had fucking Nokia 32 whatever 10s and you didn't have the tech to take advantage of. You just fucking talk to each other.
That's right.
I do have a question. I can't remember where I heard this from, but someone also talking about relationships, one of the advice for them personally, they don't believe in watching TV together like as a couple, because you're just watching that thing but you're not really spending time together. You're spending time with the TV. What are your thoughts in that in terms of not communicating and spending that time as a couple?
That's really, really interesting, because as you're saying that, I'm going, oh my gosh, that's like parents asking me about putting their children in front of their TV.
Yeah.
And then I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I sit in front of the TV with my husband. Maybe I should start being mindful. So lots of things going through my head. But yeah, I think if I relate it to my advice that I give parents when they ask that question. And I really kind of go into this communication business. I think definitely you're right. When you're sitting with your, significant other, your friends, you're not engaging and you're not, sharing anything. You're not really connecting at that point. TV is a very mindless thing that you can do. And when I talk to parents always ask me, oh, is it okay for my child to watch TV? Is it, is it going to affect them? Is it going to help their communication? And the number one advice is it depends on how you're using that TV. I'm not fully against TV, but I'm not always happy about, how TV is being used. If you're sitting in front of the TV beside your child or significant other and you don't actively say anything, then TV can really be detrimental to your relationship, to your communication with your child, because no one's interacting. If I tell a parent, if you want to use TV, then the best thing to do is turn the volume down low and, narrate the TV show, talk about the TV show. You pretend you're the one telling the story. Ask questions, Maddie, my daughter, she's, bilingual. So a lot of times she wants to watch a movie and I have time. When I have time, I sit down with her and I really do turn the TV down low. And I actually do a Disney movie in Mandarin, Don't do the whole movie because that's a bit extreme. But I sit there and I tell her what's happening in the movie in Mandarin. Partially also because I'm like, oh, does she really understand what's happening in the movie? But that creates dialogue between me and her because then she starts asking me questions and then it's endless questions and then I'm tired of doing it.
Okay, too much.
Yeah, that's really different. You're at least you're interacting with your child. She's engaged. She's understanding it to her level. So I guess it's the same with, with an adult. If you're with your significant other and you're sitting down, if you're both just quiet and watching, you're not connecting. But if you might, have a conversation about it here and there, or you might ask each other questions, or you might, bond over a mindless reality TV show, there's a little bit more engagement. I think if you're really wanting to spend quality time, I think the best thing to do is probably not watch TV. Go have dinner. I think dinner is always the best. Yeah. That is the one time you can connect. You're forced to sit face to face most of the time. And there's nothing else to distract you really if you put your phones away. And you have to have those, I like to say, awkward conversations because you got to go, okay, I actually got to work hard now. There's nothing in front of me to, distract myself with. There's no TV, there's no phone. We need to really
just be in the moment.
Yeah, be in the moment. That's right. So I think that's the one way to really have a good, positive relationship. There are times, of course, when you just need to, shut off. And I think if you need to shut off, that's fine. But I guess knowing the intent of why you're spending the time together, knowing the intent of what you want to achieve, and if it's quality time, and if it's, building a connection, if it's getting to know one another, definitely pull the TV and the phones away.
No, I agree with that. And I asked that because I was thinking about that. Like it was just something that this person put out as his perspective. And I was like, that's really interesting. Like I agreed with it. But then I was thinking at the same time, I don't agree because I'm just trying to think of how we watch TV. So we watch TV probably at dinner time for an hour. And there are times when I feel like doing that every single day over time, I start to feel that there isn't much of a connection, but then I'm like, there is sort of sometimes because we're like, oh my God, I can't believe this guy's being like this, or like, oh, what do you think he's going to do? Or like, you're just like trying to see what's happening with this drama. So like there, I can see it. So I was just like interested to see your point. And it's quite similar to what I think as well. So it just depends on like the time, like how you're using it and also how you're communicating while you're watching TV or like on the phone.
And I think the big thing is the quality of your communication. When I think back to parents communicating with their child, they'll be like, oh yeah, I talk to my child, but did they really think about the quality of that conversation? Was it just, don't do that, stop it, put that away? I'm like, yeah, you're communicating with your child, you're talking to them, but is that really any quality to that? So I think when you're sitting in front of a TV or you're holding your phone and chatting about what you're staring at on TikTok or Instagram, like, is there really quality? Like, are we just filling in the...
It's like service level.
Yeah, that's right. Is it really a conversation?
Yeah.
Or is it just a statement? Is it just a comment? Is it just filling in the air because there's a bit of, crickets in the background?
Yeah, responding just to respond.
Yeah, that kind of thing. I think that's really important. So I think even me, I'm a bit more mindful now too, because of, again, my career. Every now and then I know to go, okay, we need to just have a dinner out where we're actually talking about something. And I'm always put the phone down. Just talk to me. Just say something to me. I'm very used to having good quality conversation, so I want that in my life as well.
That's good because you can transfer it through to your own relationship. And even if like your partner or Eddie doesn't really know it, but at least you can let them know and they can start to apply that as well.
Yeah.
We're not always really good at it though. I can say that now and I'm like, he's probably going to listen to this podcast and go, shit, no, she doesn't do that. What the hell? What's she talking about?
I disagree.
No, I was going to say, because it's good that you're, like Amelia said, it's good that you're reminding everyone. It's like, oh, yes, you're not taking yourself out of your professional work life, but you're always constantly having that thought, shit, I need to do it like this. But I'm always reminding my partner and my kids, hey, we need to do it like this to keep it consistent. I think sometimes when you're in that zone, you're in that moment, you kind of forget. But this also leads to the fact that, because you are a speech pathologist and you own your own business, what is the challenges that you face as a mumpreneur?
That's a good way to put it. Oh, where do I start? I think it's really hard trying to split myself into so many pieces, turning off one hat to put on another, I feel like I don't just have one career. I have many careers. I am a wife, I'm a speech pathologist, I'm a mother, I'm a chef, I'm a cleaner, all of that. So I think it's really hard separating everything and finding enough time for all of it equally. And, part of being a speech pathologist, I am always an accidental coach, almost like an accidental therapist. So I'm always there kind of preaching to parents. You need to spend more time with your child. You need to spend more time with your partner. A lot of times we have a very long relationship with my clientele that I know what the family dynamics are, so I can kind of almost lightly comment on the relationship. So a lot of times I'm telling them, you guys should spend a night out, get someone to babysit and have a conversation, go have dinner, things like that. Let dad step in and play with the kid a little bit more. So I am preaching all these things, and then I come home to my home environment and I just want to shut it all off. Like I don't want to do any of it. I don't want to do any of the stuff that I just told my parents to do. I don't want to talk to my husband. I don't want to, play with my child. I don't want to do the things that I need to do as a parent. So I just have one moment of like, I just want to, don't fucking deal with this. And then, okay, I'm good. Let's get into it.
It's like that meme. Thank God it's Friday, and they throw the paper and then, it's Monday. You pick up the papers again.
That's a good way to put it. That's exactly how my life feels. So it's hard to split, I think, between it all. And it's all a very new thing for me as well. Just, having the business running almost full time for the first time, and having 2 young children for the first time. So everything's a huge first. So I think it's a huge work in progress on how to be everything and do everything somewhat well. Yeah. I know I'll never get it all 100%, but it's trying to be there for everybody.
Finding the balance.
Yeah, and finding the balance. And I think it can be quite laborious as well, because I have to be very switched on for work, and be very energetic and very with it and know everything. And then to come home and still be that, and still be that go-to person. Kids definitely always want you. They always choose mom. So I guess you never have a break.
Yeah. That kind of leads on to the next question that I wanted to ask. Was from research, it says that being a speech pathologist, they always burn out, and I want to see if that's true or like why that would happen.
I've never actually really looked into the stats. I hope it's not hugely high, but I can kind of see where. I think if you're working for a company and they provide a lot for you and kind of give you really set standard hours and they don't have KPIs or things like that, I think you can be quite comfortable and you probably don't really burn out. the job can be really fun. You know, a lot of times we work with children. Most of us work with children. It's a bigger industry. So we spend a lot of time playing. I love that. That's all I want to do is play with the children. So that's why I love my career, you know? So it's good to know that I can go to work and just play with toys. But I think the other flip side of that is if you run your own business or if you're in a company that has KPIs, you've got the extra pressures of making the money, of seeing enough clients throughout a day, being able to juggle the admin side of things. You know, you might have to do scheduling, you might have to work out your finances, you might deal with all those little intricacies of running a business. So you're not just providing the therapy. You've got to provide the therapy, but you've also got to do your bookkeeping and all the maintenance. Yeah. And I think the other side of things too is, like I mentioned earlier, you kind of become an accidental counselor. So I think that's where the emotional part comes in. A lot of these clients stick around for a very long time, you know, and you build a very huge bond with them. You know, a lot of them become family. I always try to keep it separate, but it's very hard to, because you've seen them grow. You know, some of the clients I've had since they were like 5 years old and now they're like 12 years old.
Wow.
So it's very hard to separate from that. And you become almost like a psychologist as well, where you hear your parents, you know, they come to you first thing because they're complaining about, you know, their husband or their wife, or, you know, the children being noisy and naughty and whatever else that comes with, you know, raising a family. And then you kind of come from a professional / personal experience and you confide in them. And so I guess a lot of times you become the go-to person to chat with. And I guess because they've trusted you in their children, that they're trusting you in their life story as well, in their life problems. So you kind of working through it with them and you take on a lot of that. And I think even as a therapist as well, working with children, some of these children, you know, they don't have a very good prognosis. Their future might not look the way the parents want them to look. And I think knowing that deep down and not being able to really tell them that, because it will break their heart, I think puts a lot of emotional strain on yourself, because you kind of carry that burden that, I'm sorry, we're doing all of this, but really it might not lead to much. You know?
Yeah.
Please does not mean that you shouldn't do speech therapy, but you know what I mean is like, it's about maintenance.
Yeah.
And you knowing that it's not going to really go too far, and their aspirations for them to be an astronaut is like, let's dial it down a bit. So I think that emotional portion takes part in, I guess, potentially the burnout, is that it's like a combination of it all, and you just kind of get to a point where you're like, this is too much. I'm tired. I'm exhausted. And I guess as a parent too, if you're a parent and you're working with children, you get that burnout as well, because you're so switched on for other people's kids. You got to be switched on for your kids. And eventually you're like, I just can't be that person anymore, you know?
All right. Yeah. That's the hard part, is when you're so invested in your clients and you just want to satisfy them, because that's your job, right? Especially when you're running your own business too. And it's only you that's doing it. So I can understand how hard it would be to set those boundaries initially.
So for just, I can't even talk.
You need some speech therapy now, I think.
Oh no.
Teach you how to enunciate.
So from your experience of just seeing these clients and just being in the industry, what are the most rewarding things that you've found in working in this industry?
Oh, there's tons, I think. But I think the big thing that really tugs at my heartstrings is working with children with autism, when they come to you and there is absolutely no communication. And when I say no communication, you guys probably just think talking, but it's eye contact, it's body language, it's even a sound. And they literally come to you blank, and parents cannot figure out for the life of them what the child wants. And all they're doing is screaming across the room or something like that. And working with them to a point where there's some sort of what we call functional communication. So it may not be words, but it's, you know, even an eye blink could mean something. Even a hand squeeze could be something, you know, even them walking up to you and just staring at your face is something, you know, and figuring out what those little types of communication may mean, decoding it for the parents and saying to them, look, they're actually telling you a lot with whatever they're doing. It's not words and it doesn't mean much to you, but it means a whole lot to them. And giving the parents a bit of that empowerment of actually, my child is communicating. I can communicate to them. I do know what they want, and it can get better than this. You know, they aren't doomed for the rest of their life. We can build a relationship. We can, you know, have a meaningful conversation in their way. You know, I think that is really rewarding, is seeing both the growth from the parent and the child, and seeing that relationship happen. Because a lot of the times when a parent has a child with autism, there is a bit of a communication breakdown, a relationship breakdown. You can see the strain and the stress that it's caused on the whole entire family. So I think working with them, it's like you've repaired the family as well. So it's not just communication. So I think that becomes really rewarding, and that's what keeps me going.
Yeah, that's so nice.
Yeah, that's really good.
Such a happy story.
Emotional.
Oh.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's cool to know you can see the transition from the start to the end of it, and to make that big impact to the family is huge too.
Yeah. And I guess the big thing too is making the parents realize that, because a lot of times it's very monotonous. You go through the day ins and day outs of everyday life and you just survive, and showing them that they've actually made a difference, and making that parents see that they've actually made an impact. You know, it's not just me, because a lot of times they think, oh, it's you did it. I said, no. I'm not with them all the time. I see them an hour a week. It's everything that I've taught you, and you've implemented this at home, and you've stuck to it, and you've trusted me. And that's why your child is the way they are today.
Yeah.
You know?
That's so nice.
Yeah. I think ultimately it's also repairing that relationship too, because it would have been so hard to navigate having a child that has autism as well. So relationship would have suffered a fair bit too. So I think you coming in there, kind of healing that is big.
That's it.
Yeah. But wanted to ask you, what are your 3 top tips, personal experiences in relation to better communication?
I think I've kind of touched on them here and there within our conversation. I think the big thing is being transparent. Always speak your mind, tell whoever you're speaking to the truth, and saying it all out, because we don't, you know, the other person doesn't know. They may only know part of it, or they may assume. And I think it's important that you always be honest, because if you don't do that, like I said, there's a communication breakdown. So I think that's kind of like a bunch of words in one. Honesty, transparency, and truth. I think another one is, like I've said before, is the communication style. I think in order to be a better communicator, you've got to learn to read the room. You've got to learn how others communicate, and being aware that everyone communicates differently, and not judging them by the way they communicate, but to cater to the way they communicate. And that goes with, you know, if anyone ever comes across, you know, a person with a disability, you know, understand that, hey, they're probably not saying anything to you, but actually they're still communicating something, and you can still kind of create that relationship with them and that bond with them. So I think that's really important. And I think the third thing is kind of what, Amelia, the question you asked about the TV. I think that sparked something new that I've realized is really important, I think, in communication, is the quality of your conversation. Don't just speak for the sake of speaking. And if you're, you know, with your child, think about what you're actually saying to the child. You know, I think we're all guilty of it. Parents being stressed, being tired, being overrun, and coming home and having to deal with children. A lot of times what you end up saying is no, and just yelling at them. There's no quality there. And actually that probably creates a lot of the meltdowns, is because you're not actually listening to them, and you're not actually responding to their needs. So I think that's really important. And even I think with your significant other, you know, is really when they're speaking to you or asking you a question, think about what the intent behind that is because they may be seeking out more. They may be wanting more from you. So think about the quality of your response. Don't just, if there's, you know, come to you and said, oh, work was really awful today. And you go, oh yeah, is that right? Oh, okay, cool. You know, that sucks. Well, mine was fine. You know,
don't know about you, but mine
was good.
That's not quality. They started that conversation because they probably want to unload something.
Yeah.
So I think that's going to really support better communication and
I really love that.
a little bit of relationship advice there.
Hey,
Didn't know I had that in me.
You should just open up to just therapy.
Yeah, therapy.
Just therapy in general. I know the amount of skills I've picked up along the way, I think.
Oh, that's good. I think it's a really good skill, really good profession and industry that you're in, just helping so many people.
Yes. So please come to my business, work with a speech pathologist.
Oh yeah. Do you want to shout out where people can find you in terms of your work? Instagram, if you got
shameless plug.
Yeah, shameless
Go
plug.
for it.
Anything?
Yeah, definitely. My company is called Pep Talk Speech Pathology, and I do have Instagram, which I do need to put some love and attention to. It is Pep Talk Speech, and you can definitely Google if you can't find me. I am at the moment a one-person operation, so I am hoping that one day I can expand and create a bit more of a, not just therapy for children, but like, how I said about empowering parents, I think in the future, that's what I'd love to do, is look at how to help them with the relationships when there is, a child in the mix that isn't communicating, and how do we kind of support them with those relationships as positive relationships. So stay tuned.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So exciting times ahead.
Yeah. Spreading the awareness that people need to know, Hey?
You need to just communicate better. Get off those phones, get off the TV, get off the technology. I think that's my other advice.
Get off the fucking phone,
The
guys.
final advice
Final
for
word.
everyone.
Well, thank you again for joining us. You've shared a lot of deep information. I think a lot of people don't really realize, especially when it comes to speech pathologist or pathology.
Excuse me, it's just therapist now.
Sorry, yeah, therapist.
Either or. We get called so many things. Speech language pathologist, teacher, lady, I don't know. All kinds of weird
lady.
things.
Lady.
Yeah. That person, the game lady, the toy lady.
What?
Sometimes I get called that
Toy
from the kids.
lady?
Wow.
Because I bring toys.
Wow.
Yeah, no, it's been great having you on, and thank you again for coming on and sharing all these.
Thank you.
Well, thank you guys for joining us, and we'll see you guys in the next episode.
Bye.
Peace.